Welcome to Breaking Sales, a podcast dedicated to helping you have tough, meaningful, and rewarding conversations with your prospects and clients. In meaningful, what we mean is these are the conversations you truly feel like you are the prospect or client's conversational peer. There's no anxiousness or uncertainty holding you back. You feel a sense of calm and confidence in asking the tough questions. You're not thrown off by the bad news, and you expect the prospect to think about and invest into the conversation as much as you do. On Breaking Sales, we use the filter of psychology and innate human behavior to deconstruct the many misleading sales approaches that actually work against your efforts to build trust and close the business. Let's get started. Not all no's are equal. It's up to you to decide which type of no you're willing to accept. In this episode, Pam and I are going to talk about the difference between receiving a lazy no and a hard-earned no. A lazy no happens when you have a weak mindset, one dominated by scarcity, attachment, and low intent. The mindset that causes you to feel anxiety and hesitancy in your conversations. It limits your listening, questioning skill set, and willingness to hold your ground during negotiations. It is a result of the cautious side of you. The biggest culprit in receiving a lazy no, jumping too soon with your competency because of your need to impress. Human nature is to disqualify new ideas and things that are different. The hard-earned no can only be experienced with a high-performance mindset of abundance, detachment, and high intent. This mindset keeps you in the game and empowers you to ask the meaningful and sometimes difficult questions needed to help your prospect think critically and objectively. This experience becomes part of the value that you create for your prospect or client. It is the confident and courageous version of you. Think about your own experiences when someone is trying to sell you. Do you immediately embrace the expertise and jump to make changes? Probably not. Or do you value the process of how they help you reflect and think about how you could improve or do something better? Funny thing to think about, it's sometimes the pursuit of the hard no that turns into a well-earned yes, but the lazy no becomes nothing more than a regret. If you're ready to earn your no's instead of settling for them, let's get started. Today, Pam, I would like to talk about with you this concept of an easy no versus a hard no.
Hey, this is different.
This is different.
This is different.
So getting to a no is great in general, all right? It's how you get there, though, that makes it great. And it's the quality of the no that makes it great. Because there are a lot of no's that aren't great, and there are a lot of no's that people should not be proud of.
Okay.
So let's talk about the difference.
Okay.
I mean, there's a certain type of no, right, that people get to where they should be able to pat themselves on the back when it's all said and done and feel fulfillment and satisfaction. And there's a lot of no's, though, that you should probably think about, right? Your approach, how hard did you work? How hard did you make that prospect work?
I like it.
So hey, let's just jump in, right? So what do you think about the easy no? And I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think about this idea of requiring or making or expecting that prospect to work hard in a meeting with you?
I think you know my opinion on this. That's our role and responsibility. I showed up to create an atmosphere where we're both doing a level of hard work to understand whether or not it makes sense to continue talking about anything that we've discussed. The problem is, Dan, though, I don't think a lot of people think about it that way. I don't think they feel like it's the prospect's job to work hard. They feel like it's my job to work hard. And they turn that my job to work hard is to demonstrating, proving, and convincing, loaded with data, loaded with information and preconceived notions. The prospect took this meeting. I'm the one that has to do the work. I'm the one that showed up. And boy, I'll tell you what, that absolutely leads to the easy no when you think that way, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So for our listeners, here's the easy no as Pam and I get into it. The easy no is you show up, you're well prepared, you're trying to ask some questions, but like many prospects, they don't quite understand maybe the intent of your questions, what you're going to use, what you're going to do with their answers. They're uncertain. And so they resist a bit, and you receive surface level answers, which we've talked about dozens of times on the show. And you receive maybe a little feeling of that they're disinterested in answering your questions. But they're kind of hanging in there with you, and you go through the process and you learn a little bit, and you learn just enough that you're going to share something with them, because in your mind is if you can show competency, they're going to want to talk again. Or if you can show a certain level of competency or expertise, they may even consider making a change to you. So you jump in first meeting or second meeting and you're sharing competency and you get ghosted. That's an easy no.
Very easy no.
That's an easy no. You may have worked hard, don't get me wrong, as the consultant, as the sales professional, or as the associate, right? You may have worked hard in your prep. You may have done your research. You may have built out a plan of what you think your win themes were for the meeting, but you made it really easy on the prospect and you gave them a chance to give you an easy no. Because you have to remember, and I'll remind our audience, Pam, of this. Human nature, all of us face this, is that we're always, prospects especially, decision makers especially, we're always going to overestimate what we currently do, how we do it, and who we do it with. And we're going to underestimate what we could gain by doing something different. Why is that? Because it's just easier. It's safer. Just keep on the same path. I was talking to a client, Pam, this week, and they're dealing with a middle management decision maker. I mean, I hate using the phrase middle management, but I don't know what other phrase to use because it's pretty much where this person was is middle management.
Hater.
Right. But think about it, listeners. Middle management, what does that mean? Middle management is somebody, doesn't make them a bad person, but it is someone who doesn't have complete autonomy, jurisdiction, or trust in their organization probably to make huge changes. But they have just enough maybe leadership, jurisdiction, or responsibility, right, to be where they are middle management. And they tend to be individuals who don't like change, because if they do make a change and it doesn't go right, what does that say for their career? What does that say for their financial stability? You have to think about these things. So this particular client was dealing with a middle management person, and we were talking about the easy no versus the hard no. And I get it. My client was like, Dan, I want to ask these questions, but A, I don't know if they know the answers to them. And B, I don't know if they're willing to work that hard. I don't know if they have that view or if they're willing to try to gain perspective regarding change. Because every time I bring certain questions up, I get a deer in headlights.
Hear that a lot.
You know? And so the easy no is when we let the prospect off the hook and when we take our foot off of the accelerator. And what I mean by an accelerator for our listeners is it's not pressure. That's not what an accelerator means. We take our foot off the accelerator, which is we stop working hard at our listening, at our trying to ask good questions to help that prospect gain perspective. We're no longer willing to risk these questions.
But I think that's an excellent example of the easy no, is when you rationalize and justify that the person you're talking to isn't going to be able to answer the questions, doesn't feel the need to answer the questions, and everything that you just shared. I have my own way of dealing with that type of dynamic so that I get to the harder no versus the easy no. What is your perception on how to handle those folks when you are getting the deer in headlights?
You and I have talked about this. It's a great opportunity for all of us to test ourselves. 100%. This is where we get better. In these situations, Pam, that you're talking about is where we all get better as true professionals, because it's in this moment we need to slow down. We need to challenge ourselves, and we need to slow down. And what that means is we need to slow down and remind ourselves, hold on, I have a role and a responsibility here to help this person or this organization figure out how and if they should be thinking about getting better, how and if there's improvements to make. I owe this person that perspective. Now, whether they do something with it or not, I can't control. But what I can control here is me. And I didn't come into this meeting just to go through the motions. I owe them these questions. Let me slow down now and let me see if I can help explain to them more why I'm asking these questions, why these questions might be helpful to them, because it's all about perspective and clarity at the end of the day. That's what change comes down to. So that would be my advice, and that's how I would handle it. And when I've had these situations, that's what I've done. I've completely slowed down, and I've been very methodical in terms of explaining to the prospect why I'm asking the questions, why the questions might be helpful. And I've even said, take change out of it. Let's not even worry about change and take our company out of it. We're not there, and we may not get there, but let's think about these questions.
So, Dan, in my old life, this is who I dealt with. That person right in between, like you talked about. And one of the things I think we do as sales professionals, I'm going to throw myself right under the bus, is I make that person sometimes feel like, I know you're not the main decision maker, and I know you don't have the ability to answer some of these questions. And I feel like sometimes when we're asking these questions of these folks, we do it in a way where we are implying, I know you can't answer these questions, and I'm probably sitting with the wrong person. So to your point, if we know we're supposed to be getting to the hard no, where everybody is doing the hard work to determine if there's merit in continuing our discussion. And if you know this is something that you're up against all the time, one of the things I used to do and still do today when you and I have prospects like this, to your point, take change out. But I also, I find it funny when you ask them, regardless of the role you play in the organization, you have opinions. You work here. You're in it every day. What is your perspective on all of it, regardless of the role you play and whether you have the decision-making authority to affect change? You have an opinion on all of these things. And it's amazing when you kind of get that role off the table and talk to that person as if they do run this organization. It's different. It's just a different conversation. And so for all of you that do what I used to do a lot, and I got to tell you, Dan, I'm embarrassed. I know sometimes I made somebody feel like, yeah, you can't answer these questions because I'm talking to the wrong person. It's like, no, you have like great perspective on this entire organization. I want your opinion on all of it. I want to understand how you see all of it. You are affected by any change that's made in this organization. And I'd love to hear your opinions on everything that this company is doing.
That's a really good point. I know a question that I would ask in those scenarios, and I have many times, is I would say, okay, if you were the CEO,
Exactly.
how would you go about this?
You're running this joint.
If you ran the place or if you started the company, how would you go about this? What would your perspective be and why? You try to encourage that person to actually give themselves permission
Go there.
to think through how would they do it? What would their view be? Now, I know what some of our listeners are saying right now. Some of them are, because I've talked to them. Yeah, but Dan and Pam, some people just can't get there. Some people just can't answer the question. They just don't want to do the thinking. Well, in that case, if you've tried all this and you've slowed down, right? You've re-engaged, you've become methodical, sharing why you're asking the questions, you've used more empathy, you've reshaped your questions, and you've put the hard work in, okay, then you just got your way to a hard no. You've earned it. Because sometimes you're right. Maybe there are, and sometimes maybe there are people out there that, yeah, you know what? You're right. They can't get there. Some can, but some can. That's the difference though. So if we take that 2 out of 10 rule that you and I have done the research on for the past 10 years, right? Yeah. And we go out there and we say, okay, for 10 prospects, how many have decided on making change? We know the answer is 1 or 2 before the sales professional or the consultant ever shows up. The other 8 haven't. Out of those other 8, there are some who should make a change, but haven't thought about it yet. And there are some who shouldn't make a change. And there are some who don't even know why you might be sitting with them yet. We get that. But here's the thing. For the 2 out of 10 that have decided to make a change, and for the certain percentage of the other 8, put the work in, because you have to help some of those other 8 gain a different perspective.
So to your point, my last ditch effort to be able to say that I did the hard work and I can walk away saying I got that hard no. I have been in positions where they're not going there. And I have said, and I know everybody has their different way of doing this, but I would look at you and say, all right, Dan, I am failing miserably at my ability to ask you questions today. What should I be asking you? Because clearly I'm missing the mark on all of this. And I just try to be super vulnerable and super empathetic, and I hand it back over to you. And I ask, I'm not asking you the right things. What should I be asking you right now? And that changes it too. And there have been times I got to fall on the sword. I'm getting the 1-word answers, the eyes rolling. I don't know, Pam. I don't know. And I'm like, okay, I am doing such a poor job today. What should I be asking you, Dan? What should I be asking you? Because I'm missing it right now.
I love that, because you just hit on honesty and vulnerability. And what you just reminded me of, and we've talked about this before, is how powerful vulnerability can be. So for those listeners who just heard what Pam said, she fell on the sword. She said, hey, obviously I'm doing a poor job today, right? Obviously that I need to get better at asking my questions, and I'm struggling. That's on me, not on you. What should I be asking today, right? She fell on the sword. That's vulnerability. Think about your children. When your children screw up and they mess up, and you have to approach them because they messed up on something, right? But before you can approach them, they come to you and they say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, can we talk? I messed up. Something's bothering me, and I want to talk to you about it. What happens to your temperament in that moment when your child comes to you with that kind of vulnerability? And Pam, you just did it in your example. I mean, that was That was very, very good.
And it's the truth. If I find that my questions are missing the mark and this person, it's clearly not of interest. And so I think that last ditch attempt is to allow them to tell me what I should be asking them. I had this one gal, I'll never forget it. And she was just irritated. This was like my second year at Lappin. And it was when we were hard and heavy, Dan. Remember, we were having meetings like 3 to 4 times a week at that point. And I'm trying to ask her these questions. And yes, granted, I probably was not doing the best of jobs. And when I did that and fell on the sword, she just laughed. And she's like, you are missing the mark. I'll tell you what you should be asking me. And I'm like, all right. And she did. She gave me a series of like 3 to 4 questions. And what she told me, she said, I think you thought you knew what my role was when you came into this meeting today, but it's not what you thought it was. She said, so I'm going to give you some credit there that my title probably misled you a bit. But she said, this is what you should be asking me. I'm like, fair. Yep.
So going back to the theme, what we want to do, listeners, is avoid the easy no. How do you know you're on track for the easy no? Well, you already know. You're not willing to take risks in your questions. There's one signal that you're probably heading to an easy no, right? You're not willing to dive deeper with the prospect with your questions. You're relying more on competency and sharing what you think that prospect might be impressed with regarding either your expertise, your resources, your offering, or your team, right? And you're afraid to upset them. You're afraid to get them to commit some effort and work. So those are absolute signals that you're heading toward an easy no. And then if I pull it all together on the easy no, you have a little bit of anxiety inside. You have a little bit of hesitation inside, a little bit of uncertainty and cautiousness because you feel some attachment. You feel some scarcity. You want that second meeting, or you want them to like you, or you want them to do business with you. That will tell you also you're probably headed toward an easy no. So go to the hard no, which we've talked about. Look, for our listeners, and Pam, I want you to jump in on this, obviously, but for our listeners, I'll sum it up. A hard no is when you test yourself, not just the prospect, not just the client, but you're testing yourself because your resolve to have a really good conversation and help that prospect or client really think objectively and critically is so strong that you're not deterred when you get surface level answers. You're not put off when they might seem a little agitated. You're not put off when there's 10, 15, 20 seconds of silence, because you know in your heart your approach is benevolent and you're asking these questions because you know they serve the prospects and the client's thinking process and perspective. And you can walk away from that meeting feeling like you left it all out there. That's a hard no. That is a no worth getting in a nutshell.
I like it.
So with the hard no, any thoughts, Pam, on like things you've seen or rules or just parameters on the pursuit of it?
You said something interesting, and you know I'm a big believer in this. I think right now, folks, your ability to get to the hard no means you have to exercise that critical thinking muscle. And more than ever, I feel right now in the business environment, people need critical thinkers. People need to see your ability out of the gate to do some critical thinking. And in my opinion, that's your ability to demonstrate that level of skill out of the gate with a prospect. If you want to talk about conversations being compared, anybody can ask these leading type, easy no questions. So how are you using data in your business? So, are you seeing this in your business? Because we're seeing a lot with some of your competitors and other folks in your space. And that's easy. It's the critical thinking piece that really allows a sales professional or a consultant to sit back and say, okay, this is a different quality of conversation that I guarantee, based on just their reaction in the meeting, that they're not getting with others. And I think that's a great indicator to the sales professional or consultant that they're getting better at getting to that hard no versus the easy no. That critical thinking is key right now.
You know what's funny, listeners, and Pam, you and I have talked about this. I did this twice this week already. Talking to one of our clients, one was a consultant, one was a sales professional. I said, think about a meeting where someone's selling you and they sit down with you and, they're professional and they engage and you're feeling like they're professional and you actually feel like they're prepared and you share something in one of your answers and that person then immediately starts to share their expertise. They tell you how they might solve what you're experiencing. They tell you maybe why you're experiencing it, right? And they give you a path to solve it. That's one type of meeting. Or you sit down with someone who might be a sales professional or a consultant, right? And you're sharing some of the things that you're facing in your business, just like you did in the first example. But as you share, the person you're talking to dives in deeper with you. They're not telling you how they're going to solve it. They're not telling you what they're going to do for you. They're not telling you what your options are and what your paths are to get better at it. They're asking you more questions about, tell me more. What would happen if this happens? What would happen if that happens? Is this something worth spending time on? It may not be. And they're asking you questions and allowing you to do all the thinking. When that second meeting's over and you compare that second meeting to the first meeting, which meeting are you going to walk away from? Which conversation are you going to walk away from and truly find value from it? And every time I ask a sales professional that or a consultant that, they always say the second meeting. I go, okay, is that what you're doing for your prospects or are you doing the first meeting? Well, good point. I tend to revert to the first meeting. And that right? So the hard no is the one that you really earned because you tested yourself. And by testing yourself, you knew you owed that prospect or you owed that client your best. And your best is not your expertise. Your best is your listening and your willingness to ask questions that helps that prospect do or that client do critical thinking.
My way of thinking through that is the easy no is when I have the mindset that I'm here as a sales professional to solve for you. The hard no is I'm here as the sales professional to help you figure out if there's anything you need to be solving for.
And I'll say this. I love that, Pam. And I'll say this to our audience. Just try this one time. That's all Pam and I asking. Ready? Try this one time. In one of your next meetings, just try to prioritize listening and learning without sharing any expertise. Try it once.
Great challenge.
And test the difference in the conversation and in the experience of that conversation. That's all you got to do. Just do it once and see where you end up. So for our listeners and our audience, let's all work hard and get to the hard no, the one that we all can walk away from feeling good because we left it all on the playing field.
Here's what I want you to remember. Not all no's are created equal. An easy no happens when you let prospects off the hook. You avoid the tough questions, you jump into competency demonstrations, and you walk away wondering what went wrong. A hard no happens when you test yourself, when your resolve to help that prospect think critically is so strong that you're not deterred by surface level answers or moments of discomfort. Remember, your best clients are still out there, but they're not the ones who are ready to buy today. They're the ones who need you to help them see what they can't see yet. That requires you to be willing to make them work, to ask the tough questions others won't ask, and to earn your no's. Before you go into your next meeting, ask yourself, am I here to solve for them, or am I here to help them figure out if there's anything worth solving for? The answer to that question will determine whether you get an easy no or a hard no. And remember, your prospect deserves your best. And your best isn't your expertise. It's your listening and willingness to ask the questions that help them think differently. Thanks for listening in.